Hi, Terry Duncan here with Cut, Color, and Create. Thanks for joining me. Today we're going to do something a little different. We're going to create a stencil from a die using a laminating pouch. So you can see my laminating machine here, and I am just going to put the laminating pouch in. It has nothing in it. I'm just going to heat it up and run it through my machine. Okay, after I finished running the pocket through the laminating machine, then I used my die. So I've got a couple of the Dodeck Star dies here, and I ran them through my die machine to create these nice little stencils. Now, a couple things to note. One is that I ran it through 3 times to make sure it cut, and there were still a couple of little places that I needed to reinforce the cut with an X-Acto knife. The other thing I wanted to point out is that there's a side where everything's smooth and nice, and there's a side where it was obvious the die came through, cut, and pushed the plastic through. So there's a rough side and a smooth side. And the side that I'm going to use as a stamp is the smooth side. So I've just got a piece of cardstock here so I protect my work surface a little bit. I don't necessarily need that, but I thought it'd be easier to clean up. So the next thing I'm going to do is use my stamp, my new stamp, and I'm going to take some Versamark. And I'm just going to load that stamp up. I'm just covering that real good with the Versamark ink. And then I'm going to pick it up with the tweezers to minimize spots where I wipe off what I just put on. And then I've got a piece of Bristol cardstock here that I'm going to place the image on. And then I'm going to take another piece of cardstock and place over the top of that and just rub on it so that the Versamark gets transferred to the Bristol. Now I think I'm just going to leave that there so I can see where it is, and I'm going to do the same thing with this smaller image and get it on the side that is smooth, and then I'm going to load it up with ink. And then I'm going to do the same thing I just did. This time I'm going to go off the edge just a little bit. Had 2 pieces there. Now hopefully that transferred over. I'm going to pick that up. Oh, it looks like it did. I don't know if you can see that. Yeah, can you see it? And then I think I'm going to do one more of these little ones. Tip it up so I can see where the design is. And I think I'll put this one right here. I'm going to turn this over so I don't get any Versamark where I don't want it. Rub it on. And then take off my stencil. Now I'm going to carefully get my, I'm going to move this out of the way now. And get out my embossing powder. Make sure that I coat that real well with the powder. This image didn't, it appears that this image didn't transfer as well as the other two, but that might be okay. It might be real interesting to see how that turns out. Now, I see a couple of places where I've got powder I don't want it, so I'm just going to use a little brush to remove that. I do realize that I had forgotten to put down some anti-static powder, so that was probably a big mistake. There we go. Now I'm going to heat up my heating tool. I'm going to let that run for about 15 seconds and then apply it to the back of the card first and then the front. So I apply it to the back to reduce the warping, and it heats up the powder so that it quickly melts on when you get it on the other side. See the card is straightening out, and when we get done melting all this, then we can go back on the back side and repeat. Looks like we're getting a nice image. There we go. Like I said, I'm going to just go in the back and maybe try to flatten it out a little bit. And there we have our embossing done. All right, now the next step is to blend some of my ink. I'm using Distress ink. So I'm going to start with Candied Apple. And I'm just going to load a little bit onto my brush. I'm gonna wipe a little bit of that off, and then I'm going to blend it onto my cardstock in the center here. I'm going to do that in the center of each one of my images. Okay, the next color I have, I picked Raspberry. And I'm going to just rub that right around the edge of that red, the Candied Apple. Just making sure they blend. And then the last color I have is Wild Honey. I'm going to start with the biggest one first. Just gonna get some of that honey. Create kind of a nice halo effect. There we go. And now what I'm going to do is smush each one of these colors onto my work surface. This is where the faux watercoloring comes in. So again, I've got same colors, candied apple, picked raspberry, and wild honey. I've got a little jar of clean water and a nice big brush. So I'm gonna just make sure that I have a clean brush. Yep, it's a good thing I did. So I'm gonna start off with a dry brush, and I'm just gonna pick up some of this red. And deepen the color in the center there. And then I'm going to pick up some water out of my jar and just move that a little bit. Okay, I'm going to clean off my brush. And make sure it's drier. And then do the same thing with the pink. I'm gonna just bring out the design. And it's blending the inks that I used the blending brush for right in with what I'm putting on with the brush, and it's giving a beautiful, almost ombre look. Just enhancing the kind of flower image a little bit. Now I'm gonna clean off my brush, get that pink out of there. And then I'm gonna dry it off a little bit. And then I notice, you know, that the wild honey's distributed pretty well here, but it's kind of disappeared here. So I'm gonna pick a little bit up and just bring some of that in. And I'm going to do the same thing on this little one here. Just bring a little more of that honey color into the design. Now this one looks like it needs a little bit of yellow, so I'm going to add that back in. And there we have it. Our beautiful faux watercoloring using our own handmade stencil stamp. Thank you for joining me. Bye.